When the guy who created the world's most powerful AI sits down for an interview, the conversation is never just about tech. It gets into philosophy, power, even faith. So let's dive into Sam Altman's recent chat with Tucker Carlson and really unpack the huge moral questions at the heart of artificial intelligence. This right here. This is the question, isn't it? The whole entire conversation really just circles around this one massive idea. It's the central problem we're all facing as we build these machines that are literally going to reshape our world. So let's see how they're even trying to answer it.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to break down the key pieces of their talk. We'll start with the creator's own worldview, then jump into the big debate over power, look at how an AI's morality is actually built, ask if AI is becoming a new religion, and wrap up with all the things we just can't predict.
Okay, first up, the creator's beliefs. Because really, if you want to understand the moral code being programmed into an AI, you kind of have to start with the beliefs of the person who's ultimately in charge of it all. So when he's asked about his spiritual beliefs, Altman's answer is pretty interesting. He's not claiming to be a religious literalist or that he's getting messages from on high or anything like that. It's more that he just acknowledges this mystery, something bigger than us that science can't quite explain yet. And that belief, that humility in the face of the unknown, really seems to shape his whole approach to this monumental task of creating AGI. And that mindset leads us directly into the biggest conflict of the whole interview. Is this incredible power from AI going to end up in the hands of a few super elites? Or is it going to be spread out to empower, well, everyone? Tucker Carlson really pushes this point, and it's a fear a lot of us have, right? That this technology is so unbelievably potent that it's just going to inevitably concentrate a staggering amount of power and influence into the hands of a very, very small group of people. But here's where Altman reveals his thinking has actually changed. He says he used to have that exact same fear, but not anymore. Now, he argues the complete opposite. He believes AI is going to be this incredible equalizer, a tool that will up-level billions of people, making every single one of us more capable and more creative. So you see, this is the fundamental fork in the road. On one path, there's this fear of a new tech aristocracy, and on the other, there's the hope of a tool that lifts everybody up. Which of these two futures becomes our reality? Well, that could change everything. So that brings us to the really tricky nuts and bolts part of the problem. If you're building this world-changing thing, how in the world do you actually teach it right from wrong? Well, the first step is just raw data. The main goal is to have the AI learn from, well, everyone, the entire collective human experience. And that means it has to read everything, the good, the bad, the brilliant, the absolutely awful, to create a starting point that reflects our species in all its messy glory. But look, just knowing everything doesn't make you moral. You need some rules, some guardrails. And that is where something called the model spec comes in. Just think of it like the AI's constitution. It's an actual written document that spells out the rules of the road for the AI, defining how it's supposed to act. And there it is. That's the multi-trillion-dollar question, isn't it? Whose values, whose sense of right and wrong gets written into that foundational document? A document that's going to guide how this thing behaves for millions and millions of people. Altman's answer here is incredibly direct. He says he talks to a lot of philosophers and ethicists, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with him. He flat out says that he's the one who should be held accountable for those final decisions that shape the AI's morality. Now, this idea of one person being in charge of the moral code, well, that leads Carlson to his most provocative argument of the whole interview, that AI is starting to act less like a tool and more like something else. So Carlson lays out his definition of religion. Basically, any power that's greater than us that we look to for guidance. And if you accept that definition, he argues, then AI isn't just a technology anymore. It's basically a new religion, giving answers and moral direction to its followers. Altman doesn't really take the bait on the whole religion label. Instead, he pivots to what is really his strongest defense: total transparency. The point, he argues, isn't to create some mysterious new faith, but to build an open book, a tool that everyone can understand. And the process he describes is designed to be totally out in the open. 1, the model spec gets written down. 2, it's published for the whole world to read, so we all know how the AI is supposed to act. And 3, that lets us judge its behavior. If the AI does something weird, we can tell if it's just a bug or if it was an intentional choice. The whole idea is to take away the mystery. But even with a public rulebook, we're still flying blind in a lot of ways. And this brings us to the final and maybe the most unsettling part of their conversation: all the side effects that we just can't see coming.
Altman is really frank about this. He says the stuff that keeps him up at night isn't the dangers they can see and plan for. No, it's the unknown unknowns, the subtle, cascading effects that you can't even imagine until they happen, once hundreds of millions of people start using this thing every day. And this is a perfect illustration of what he means. On the seriously terrifying end of the spectrum, you have the risk of AI helping someone create a bioweapon. But then on the much more subtle, almost quirky end, you have things he's already seeing in the real world, like people starting to write like AI models specifically, using way too many M-dashes. It sounds like a tiny thing, but it's hard proof that this technology is already changing our behavior in ways nobody ever predicted.
So, that's where we're left. The big goal is to build an AI that reflects the collective wisdom of our entire species. But as we've seen, that collective is a messy, complicated thing full of contradictions. The ultimate challenge isn't about code. It's about deciding which parts of our complex, frustrating, and beautiful humanity we actually want this incredibly powerful new mirror to reflect back at us.